Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome, LR.
Hi, thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. I'm super excited. We have LR Braden. She is an urban fantasy author, my favorite genre, not to diss any other genres, and dun dun dun, drum roll, she has a half Fae character. And I don't know if you know, but I write about the Fae, so I'm super excited to hear all about your half Fae character. The series, well, your most recent release is Shadows Bastion. I'm not gonna say Bastion, right?
Yes, Shadows
Okay.
Bastion.
Of the Magicsmith series is an urban fantasy series featuring Alex Blackwood, right? Did I get that right?
Yes, Alex Blackwood.
Fun. I skimmed your website enough to get that far. So jump us off from there. Tell us about the characters, the stories. I want to know everything.
All right, so the first book in my Magicsmith series is called A Drop of Magic, and I wanted to create a series where the reader got to discover the magical world alongside the main character. So I wrote a character in a world where magic is an accepted truth. The Fae came out of hiding because the portals that lead to their realms were in danger of human expansion. And there was conflict. There was what I call the Fairy Wars, during which time the main character, Alex's father, went off to basically try to eradicate magic from the world. Um, and he never came home. And so my main character, Alex, she grew up believing she was fully human and having kind of a chip on her shoulder about magic because her dad went off to fight magic and didn't come home. And so she does her best to avoid the Fae and all things magical until one of her best friends is murdered. And a fairy knight shows up on her doorstep asking for her help to solve the murder. And she's like, why would you ask me this? Like, what the heck? And so that's when she is informed that she is part Fae. And they do a little test to kind of prove it to herself. And so it's about her discovering that hidden part of herself and having to come to terms with it and accept it as a part of who she is. And as the series progresses, she learns more and more secrets about her family and her heritage and her powers. And so at each step of the way, she has another kind of shocking revelation that she has to absorb in order to get through the story. Um, so let's see, so Shadows Bastion, the one that just came out, that's book 8.
Oh, wow. 8. I was like, oh, is this book 3 or 4?
Yeah, this is book 8. So there are 8 books in the Magicsmith series right now. So she starts off not even having any idea that she has magic and not really knowing anything about the magical world because she's been avoiding it and avoiding the Fae. And so she ends up over the course of the series going to Fae courts, interacting with a whole plethora of different types of species of Fae and characters and other what I call paranaturals. So my world, as it, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without giving too much stuff away. As it develops, you will uncover more paranatural races. So pretty much all the different kinds of paranormal and fantasy kind of species that you can think of are probably somewhere in my world.
Yay.
Um, so by the time that we get to book 8, which is the one that just came out, Alex has uh, adapted pretty significantly. And so she's gone from being a reclusive artist, which is where she starts. She lives in the mountains outside of Nederland, Colorado, and she just makes her metal sculptures, shows them in a gallery, and wants a quiet life. by the time we reach book 8, she is so embroiled in the conflict between the humans and the Fae and the other paranaturals who are all contesting for their position in the world, basically. There's a huge um sort of rights, I would call them human rights, but they're not human, so species rights. Um where there's a lot of conflict in that the humans don't necessarily want to share the world with magical beings, and the magical beings don't necessarily like each other. There are several groups, and so, it's like, okay, group A doesn't like group B, and group B is fine with group A, but they don't like group C, and and I've got like what I call purity, which is it's an offshoot of the Church of Humanity, which is the kind of coalition of religions in my book that I developed to show that aspect so that I could have multiple representations in there. And so purity is a very zealous offshoot that is no longer recognized by the church, but who still believes in the eradication of magic and all magic users. So they often show up as an antagonistic force in my books. And they developed a drug called Fantasia that can mimic Fey magical abilities. And so that's one of the main plot drives in book 8 is that there's a peace conference that's supposed to happen that Alex is helping to establish. She kind of acts as a bridge between the different species because she has these small parts of so many groups. And so she can act as sort of a neutral mediator. And so she's trying to protect the Peace Summit. And Purity is obviously trying to disrupt it. And so she ends up having to partner with someone who is actually an enemy in one of the previous books in order to infiltrate a Purity black market so that she can find the source of this magical drug to try to protect the Peace Summit. So yeah, it's just kind of a from the beginning to not the end, but where we are right now.
Right.
Quick summary.
Fine. Okay, so I have so many questions, getting a little bit of True Blood vibes. It sounds like it's an adult story, right? Alex is an adult.
Yes, Alex is about 30 years old.
Okay, so she's 30 years old when the series starts.
Well, technically she's 28 when the series
Okay.
starts, but yeah.
Okay, so adult book, just making sure everybody knows like what we're talking about here. Also, like what year is this set in like the human world? Is it futuristic? Is it, I mean, we have these fairy worlds, humans knows about the fairy or wars. Humans knows about the fairies. What year? Is it futuristic
So
or is it
this is contemporary fantasy.
okay?
So you can imagine it set in our current time frame. They have cars, they have cell phones. You can imagine it as sort of an alternate Earth. So if you imagined about 15 years ago that the Fae had revealed themselves to be real and that they had been living alongside us in secret all this time. And so, like a lot of the Fae that I have in my stories, I based off of cultural folklore from around the world. And so the idea being that all of those stories were based on people who had unwittingly been interacting with the Fae all this time. Um, and then, so the Fairy Wars happen, and the Magicsmith series begins about 10 years after the peace treaty was signed that ended the Fairy Wars. And so a lot of the conflicts in these books are holdovers from like people who fought in the wars and are unsatisfied with the ending and want to see a more final conclusion to that war.
Interesting. Okay, so and it sounds like you researched your fairies before you created your own fairies. How much did you? Well, she works with metals, so she work with iron or fairies?
She does, and that's one of the key points in that she and no one else would ever believe that she could be a Fae because, yes, Fae are allergic to iron in my world. So that's one of her definitive, like, I can't possibly be a Fae because And I'll go ahead and tell you this. It doesn't ruin too much because it is in the first book. But so Alex comes from a very specific line of Fae where they have an ability called imbuing. And imbuers are one of the few Fae who can actually handle iron. So the way that I have the iron allergy work in my story is the Fae all, depending on their species and their magical attributes, have different tolerance levels. So like for example, the Sea Fae are some of the least tolerant of iron, so if it's anywhere near them, they get burned.
Okay. And does she know who her mother is? I'm guessing this is like a big question mark hanging over the series too. So I don't know if you can tell us that or
She knows who her mother is. She is a little misled in who her father was.
okay. Interesting. Well, there's a lot of intrigue there that
Yeah, I'm like that
I'm
one I can't tell you too much about because her discovering her heritage is a big part of the series as it progresses, especially through the first five books. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into that.
no, that's a good. And how is it written? Is it written in a first person point of view through Alex's
Yes.
eyes? Okay.
Yes.
Fine. I love first person. I am just like gonna go buy all eight of the books when I get done with this.
Wonderful. Then we'll have more to
Um,
talk about.
right, definitely. So and the magic. Do you, it sounds like different lines of people have different abilities or magic. Is that hereditary or how does that work in your world?
Yeah, so it's broken down in the Fae specifically, they have like six courts of magic that give them their general type of magic they use. So like there's enchantment magic, illusion magic, nature magic, shadow magic, things like that. And those are roughly corresponding to the Fae realms. Each realm has a lord who oversees it, and they have a specific type of magic that they're most attuned with. The Fae, because there are lots of different species of Fae, even within a realm, you could have a bunch of people who do shadow magic. But for example, I have shadow walkers, and that's one very specific high level shadow magic that you have to be both the right kind of Fae and the right attuned to the right magic and a certain power level in order to accomplish that kind of magic. The same thing imbuers are technically enchanters. But there are lots and lots of enchanters, and some enchanters need ritualistic magic. Some of them can do things more on the fly if they're more powerful, and very, very few. There are only actually three imbuers. So that's one of the reasons why it's so out there that Alex is one, like people wouldn't expect her to be an imbuer because they're very, very rare.
Fine. And you talked about the portals a little bit. Is that what you called them? The fairy
Mhm.
portals? Okay. And where are they going when they go to their fairy or fae realm?
So the basically the way that I have this set up in my universe is you can imagine a whole bunch of parallel worlds that are overlaying each other and are separated by what I call the rift. And the rift is the chaotic energy that both connects and separates all of the realms. So when they step through a portal is basically a bridge that's anchored on both ends that allows you to cross safely through the rift. You're not really moving anywhere, but you're sort of phasing into a different dimension.
Okay. And do
And
you have, go ahead, keep going.
oh, I was just going to say, and so in that way, you can have a bunch of portals in one place that all go to different realms, and so you can have a nearly infinite number of realms that overlay each other. But I will say that there are some that are easier to get to than others.
Okay. And do you have to be a fae or a fairy to go through them, or are they magic? How are they controlled?
So the portals that are um, permanent portals, we'll call them. There are some people who can cross and create portals, but for the most part, the portals between realms are permanent portals that were anchored on both ends, and anyone can pass through them for the most part. So a human who stumbles into a portal can absolutely, whoops, end up in one of the fairy realms. Um, there is Okay, there's a species of paranatural that you meet in the story that the Fae really, really hate. And the Fae, when they created their portals, they specifically built in into the spell a way that if one of those paranormals try to cross through the portal, it will destroy them. It will expose them to the rift and unravel their being, basically. So there are some people who can't pass through the portal safely.
Okay. Yeah, I call my people, quote unquote, all the people. I call them all beings. So
There you
like
go. Yeah.
to
I know it's
distinguish,
always a little tricky.
I know, to distinguish human people from the vampire people or the fae people or the witch people or so yeah.
Exactly.
It's always hard to figure that out. Okay, so that answers a lot of questions. How did you come up with this world, or what sparked this first idea?
Mm. So I grew up reading fantasy books, but at the time it was mostly epic fantasy. That's what there was. And so it was when I was in my 20s that I found urban fantasy and I was reading it and I was like, this is great because it mixes the magic that I love with the world that I'm in. And I fell in love with that combination. And so that's why that's what really spurred me to be like, you know what? I have so many worlds in my head and so many characters in my head, and this is an avenue that really would mesh with that well. So that's what kind of inspired me to feel like I should try.
All right.
And as far as like the direction of this series in particular, because as I said before, I wanted to write a character who discovered the world along with me. And so that's why I created Alex the way that I did, rather than having her be someone who was already super competent and confident and in that world. I wanted someone who was kind of stumbling through it and made mistakes. And so, yeah, if you read them, she's definitely a flawed character. She doesn't always make the right decisions, but she does grow over the course of the series. And that's what I wanted, is somebody who could kind of come into her own as she learned to accept the world around her and find her place in that world.
Yeah, that's so neat. Like I'm thinking, I don't know if you've read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fae or Fairies, but it's like it feels like Emily Wilde mishmashed with True Blood to me. It's just like,
I haven't read Emily Wilde, but I'll have to put that on my reading list.
yeah,
Sounds
and
cool.
so it's historical fantasy, I guess. So she's a researcher and she researches the Fae. And so she wants to write an encyclopedia. So all of this research she's doing, she's putting into this encyclopedia. So I read the first one and like the second half of the second one so far, but yeah.
Very nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have, this is a little bit of a sidetrack, but so there's a secondary character in these books named Maggie. She's one of Alex's best friends. And as the series progresses, her role kind of shifts a bit. And where we're at in the series right now, she's decided to write kind of a how to survive Fey Realms guidebook. And so this is sort of a side project of mine that I'm like, ooh, I'm going to actually write this guidebook.
Definitely. That's a spin-off in and of itself, right?
Right? I'm like, that sounds like fun.
Anybody who likes your world, I'm sure, or anybody who just loves that type of book, I'm sure they would pick it up. Yeah. So, darn, I had a question and now that's eluding me. Oh, yes. So my next question is, I ask about whether these are adult characters. What rating would you give this for listeners who are trying to decide, is this good for a 16-year-old or is it not? And what type of romance is in the book?
So for like, when people I don't know ask me, who it's appropriate for, I usually say it's okay for 16 and up. I have a teenage child and she's read them and is fine with them, but I know her maturity level. So for people I don't know, 16 and up. There is a romance arc in the book, but it is a side arc. It is not the main thrust of the book. So when sex scenes show up, they are generally, a little bit leading into it, and then usually a fade to black or a closed door kind of a situation. So you won't get a lot of graphic spice in my books.
Okay.
There is also some violence in my books. Again, I try not to be like crazy over the top with the gore. But yeah, if you have particular sensitivities to violent situations, you should know those are in there too.
Well, I mean, you have magic and vampires and all of these other characters. I mean, you have to have a little bit of conflict in
Right,
there,
I'm like you
right?
gotta assume that there's going to be a reasonable amount. So based on what you had mentioned, so True Blood, similar world to True Blood, but a lot less sex than is in the books in those books. Um, I would say if you have read Shannon McGuire's October Day series, it would be on par with those as far as the heat and violence level.
Okay. Fun. Well, thank you for making sure we knew all about that. I am so loving this world. It's as I said already. I won't repeat it. It's going on my list. And I was looking at your website. You have another series, and I think in the same world, right? The Rifter series.
Yes. So my Rifter series starts with Demon Riding Shotgun. And that is in book 5, which is of my Magicsmith series, which is of metal and magic. There is a massive conflict between various paranatural groups, and Alex needs help. And one of the people who comes to help is a woman named Mira. Mira is actually possessed by a demon. And so demons are incorporeal beings who live in the rift, which is, as I said, that realm that it's a realm of chaos that separates and connects all of the different realities. So demons can't manifest in our world normally, but they can possess people so that they can affect the physical world. And those are called rifters. And usually, a demon who possesses a person will pretty quickly destroy the body they're in. So they usually have somewhere between 3 weeks and 3 months before the body deteriorates. Um, but being beings of chaos, they can do a lot of damage in that amount of time. And so Mira is a very strange person because she managed to make a deal with her demon where they balance out. And so she actually has been possessed as a rifter for about 11 years. And so she's spent so it happened when she was a teenager and she's in her mid 20s. She's like, I think 24. And so she has spent the majority of her life with this very snarky incorporeal being riding around attached to her soul. And the two of them, basically, they secretly protect the world from things that humans really are not equipped to deal with. And so she shows up in book 5 of the Magicsmith and helps defeat, I'll just say he's a necromancer. So they defeat the necromancer. And so she was a side character in that story. And I loved her. Like she was so fun. And so I created an entire series. There are now 4 stories in that series about her after that point. So I have a short story that's of her on her own before book 5 in the Magicsmith. And then book 1, Demon Riding Shotgun of the Rifter series, takes place almost immediately after book 5 of the Magicsmith series. And it's about her going and cleaning up some of the rifters that were created by the necromancer. Um, and so that series is a little bit different. It's set in the same world, and there are references to things that happen in the Magicsmith series. But Mira's the main character, and there's a secondary main character named Ty, who used to be a PTF agent, which is the Paranatural Task Force. They're the FBI of the magical world. And so the two of them are the main characters of the Rifter series, and it has alternating narrative perspectives. And it's written in third person, close perspective. Um, and let's see. Whereas like the Magicsmith, Alex tends to be very localized. She's a bit of a homebody. She's here in Colorado. Um, Mira, she's illegal. If anyone found out what she was, they would kill her. So she spends her life living in the back of a truck, traveling around the country, going where the threats are and never having any human connections for the most part. Like she is terrified of relationships, trusting other people, trusting herself. So like that's a big thing for her story is she has to learn both to trust herself and to trust, in this case, Ty, so that she can grow as a human being and learn to form those kinds of connections with other people. I will say, for anyone who reads the Rifter series, there is some self-harm, so that is a trigger warning that I just want to make sure that you're aware of.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for you like kind of anticipated all my questions that I asked you before. Okay, when is this set? What age group? What are we gonna get? So that is amazing. And do you have like I have two crossover series too, and I made this. It's not huge, but I made like a reading guide. So at least like when people came to my website and were in one series and wanted to move to the other one, they were like, okay, what do I read next? And where should I read the prequels? And do you have
That
something
is
like that?
Not yet. That is actually on my to-do list. Because I'm like, okay, so there's the Magicsmith series, the Rifter series, and I have a bunch of short stories that kind of bridge some of the gaps in the series. So I need to make a chart of like, okay, here's where these stories fall chronologically. But basically, so like I said, Mira shows up in book 5 of the Magicsmith, and so then we have book 1 of the Rifter series, and basically they sort of ladder. So it goes chronologically, then we have the Rifter, and then we have the next Magicsmith book, and then the next Rifter book, and then the next Magicsmith book. So if you're paying attention to what's happening in the world, then that's how it makes sense is to actually do them staggered like that.
Okay, and do you release them right like staggered like that too?
Yes.
Okay. And how quickly do you release books?
So generally speaking, I write 2 books a year. Last year, really kind of crazy, threw me for a loop. It was an insane year. The publishing house that had previously had all of my books contracted decided the owner decided to retire, and so they closed the publishing house. So a lot of last year was me figuring out how to transition to self-publishing. So I now actually have my own publishing house, which I called Magical Realms Press. Shadow's Bastion is the first book to come out entirely on my own. So I have my own logo and
Congratulations.
my
Love
own
that.
everything. So yeah, so that certainly slowed me down a bit. So probably this year again. So last year I had 1 book come out. This year I've had 1 book come out already. I may be able to get another book out by the end of this year, but I need to kind of get back into the swing of that side of things now that I've had to do all this businessy stuff.
That gets in the way sometimes, doesn't it?
It really does. It's difficult to balance all of the publishing and the marketing and the all of that with the actual writing.
So Shadow's Bastion came out, and that's the eighth book in the Magicsmith series. What book is next in the Rifter series then?
Um, so the next book that I have planned for the Rifter series, currently I'm calling it Demon Dreams. Um, I That is not the book that I'm writing right
Oh, okay.
now.
What book are you writing
So
right now
so
then?
it so I do have a book. I have the next book for the Rifter series outlined, and I have the next 2 books for the Magicsmith series outlined. But because of all of this shifting that was happening, it gave me a little bit of freedom outside of contracts to explore some other stuff. So I am actually writing the first book in a trilogy that is set in an entirely different world.
Fun. Well, sounds like many characters and worlds live in your head, so that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Yeah, if I only had enough time. I know it's like, oh, I want to get all of these because I've got like 4 different series outlined right now that I'm like, I just have to find the time to actually write them.
That is a problem.
Yeah.
This has been so much fun. Tell everyone where we can find you and your books.
LRbraden.com is my website, and you can find explanations, synopses of all of my books. You can find the purchase links for various retailers. and some bonus extras like character art and glossaries and reading lists and stuff.
Well, fine. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll come back when you release your next book.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Trisha.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Trisha Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the magic.